what I'm taking from this. He is saying that because natural selection has shaped our senses, that there's no way to think that we aren't in a simulation. Is that what I'm deriving, or am I misunderstanding that?
What he said was that, and they have math that proves this. If you look at all of the, let me rephrase it. The chances that natural selection would decide that showing us as humans a more accurate portrayal of the nature reality is zero. That if we saw the nature of reality the way it's actually happening, we would not survive.
Well, I understand that, but how does that prove that we're living in a simulation?
You're mistaking it. That doesn't prove anything. That's just the first part of a longer list of questions. That doesn't prove anything.
Okay.
I would say that the clip is not really the best clip to highlight the thing that I brought out the most of, is that he's saying that consciousness is fundamental, and from consciousness we have space-time, versus space-time being fundamental, and then space-time creates consciousness. Mm-hmm. So that's a much broader topic.
Right.
What he's trying to say, what he's doing is he's creating the argument that we are given a headset. He's using the headset as a metaphor. The headset is all your senses, the body that you live in.
Right.
We're just calling it a headset because it makes it easier
to conceptualize. I get it. Yeah.
Conceptualize it. Within the headset, evolution is in the headset, because evolution doesn't exist either, because it's just a construct of space-time, which is a construct of consciousness.
Well, because you could keep backdating it, saying like, if this is because of this and this because of this, then obviously there's got to be a start point for that. Right. But I get it. So
he's saying that evolution has chosen to show us a very tiny glimpse of the nature of reality, because that's all we need to survive. And I could give you an example.
No, but by the way, you don't need to convince me on that. I'm on board with that.
I would like to illustrate one example of that. Okay. We have eyesight, and you already have an understanding of what we can see. Evolution has decided that human beings don't need telescopic eyes. Mm-hmm. We didn't develop ability to look up into the cosmos and be able to see, a storm on Jupiter.
Right.
That have no value here.
Right.
The other thing that you can say is it's obvious that we're standing in a giant, limitless soup of atoms and molecules.
And we don't see them. Right.
We don't see them. So that's the nature of reality, is we just don't see that much.
By the way,
that's really what he's saying there.
There was a great TV show years ago that showed you how it was called Brain Games, and it would show you how your brain fills in reality over and over again, right? So it would show you like your peripheral vision, for instance. Very often your brain just fills in what it assumes should be there based on your own experiences in life or whatever you've seen before, and it will make sense to you. Like how many times we get tricked with like a triangle on the screen that's not really a triangle, because your brain fills in the empty lines, because your brain needs to make sense of your reality. I 100% agree. We all, like, even though we both can agree that this thing here is black,
right?
What I see as black and what you see as black may be different,
right?
But we both know that this is how our brain interprets black. There's no way to know for sure if we see it the same way.
Well, I get that. He uses the game, that car chase game, Vice. What's it called?
Grand Theft Auto.
Grand Theft Auto. Okay. So he says, imagine that we're all inside of Grand Theft Auto.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Does that mean I can start going to beat up hookers? Because that's a big part of that game.
He talks about this argument really well. He says, if I'm holding a gun, and I drop it, and now I'm not holding it anymore, and I turn around the corner, you as another player can approach the same gun. So that's see, it exists. Mm-hmm. But he's saying no, it only exists inside of this virtual reality that's been created by evolution, that we're all part of the same. We're all part of that same thing.
I agree with this part. I have no problem with. Then
I don't do a great job here. I'm not really trying to, I should draw some kind of conclusion of why I find this stuff really interesting. Well, the first thing is the idea that consciousness is fundamental. Consciousness is the creator of mind, fits yogic thinking, for one. It fits the Tao Te Ching. Lao Tse wrote this, right? So it really changes, it really helps to create a more modern day practical perspective on how we create the world that we live in. And if we can somehow take off the reality headset and see deeper into the nature reality, what else would we be able to create for the good of our lives and for other people? I mean, you know what I'm saying?
I'm on board with all of this. I just think it's, how do you, to use his metaphor, how do we pull off the headset? How about that?
You die, for one. Well, it's the truth. Right? That's actually what it is. So what he said beautifully, which comes from ancient Buddhist philosophy, is to die before you die, which is the practice of meditation. What it should be doing is quieting your mind, starting off with the most difficult task, which is the first phase of meditation is getting the ability to show up for it, which is just the discipline. Then you go through all kinds of troubles with concentration, distraction, and then boredom. Boredom is such an incredible fuel to take you in to the obsessions of the mind, just to get
out. Well, that's what to quote, as we bring up a lot on the show, Neil deGrasse Tyson. He always says that the greatest minds came up with their ideas when they were living alone with no Netflix and nothing to distract them. They had nothing but themselves, and that's when the best ideas come from.
That's right.
And then also, to piggyback on what you said about die first, we have said this 100 times on the show. How often is it that people have to go through shit before they start really looking at life differently? Like, they have to usually hit some sort of metaphorical rock bottom before they start having an enlightened look at the world. And I've often said I hate that so many of the people we bring on had to go through the fucking firestorms of hell before they were able to look at the world differently.
Because life is difficult, no matter, I mean, you've seldomly, if ever met someone that said life is just completely easy and there's no troubles, right? And so what it seems to be is we come into this world completely enlightened, without words or knowledge, but we're completely open. We have a very incredible connection to pure consciousness, and then it starts. We come in as a complete puzzle, and the dismantling begins, whether it's not getting our needs met or suffering a trauma. I mean, I wrote the calculations down. I calculated how many hours we're awake each year, and then I did the math, and I said, over the 20 formative years of your life, you have this number of hours. I forgot the math, but it's a lot. You have this number of hours to be awake for something to go wrong that will shape you in a negative way. It's almost it's impossible for anyone to leave their childhood unscathed or covered up, where they lose the connection to the one, which is you're inside the game. He uses the Twitter metaphor, Donald Hoffman. He says, look at all these agents of consciousness. They're typing, they're messaging, they're posting stuff, but they're not posting it into the ether of space. They're posting it on Twitter. That's the platform. So the universe itself, or consciousness itself, is the common consciousness that we're all uploading information to. And we can't make it like we know why it's happening. This doesn't explain, well, who created the virtual headset? Like, if we're all wearing a virtual headset, what created it? That's not even being touched on. We're really just talking about a new frontier in science that's emerging. It really is a renaissance, going from the idea that space-time creates consciousness, which is 99% of the physicists think that way,
for sure,
to the idea that consciousness creates space-time. And you heard it here first on Good Sugar, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, unless you were watching Donald Hoffman. But
well, they don't know that yet. They don't know that. I think we listened to. There's better clips that we should listen.
Is there another clip, or is it just that clip? I don't know what we're doing.
No, Brian was right. This guy doesn't talk in 5-minute blurbs, so Brian was really smart. He picked something where there was like a hard stop. Otherwise,
or else he'd be going for hours.
Going long. But I really want you to hear. I'm begging Brian. I really want you to hear him talking about the headset theory because it's really interesting.
Well, is there another clip, Brian?
Consciousness is fundamental, and space-time is just an interface. And our bodies are merely icons that we use to represent interactions of conscious agents. Then, on that approach, there is the possibility that some aspect of my consciousness survives death. It may be, for example, that the bare awareness that's associated with me, just awareness without content, that survives, but all the details of Donald Hoffman and his life story within this interface, maybe that all dissolves.
I'm not against. So again, by the way, I thought he would be saying things that I would find harder to swallow. I think
he does. In some of the stuff, he gets into the math, and it brings up all the stuff that you talk about: string theory,
right.
Quarks, neurons, all those little scientific
it's probably
things.
Hard to dissolve that into dilute that rather to a minute. So I get it.
No, it's not, and it's not the nature of our show. But
right.
There's a guy.
But I would say this, Marcus. I'm going to interrupt you. I would say send me one of the ones that move you the most, and on my next long run, I will listen to it while I run. That's when I listen to most podcasts.
I like it. I just ask you to try to listen to it 2 times fully.
Okay.
I think you'll get it in 2 times.
Well, I'll tell you this. I hope those that listen to this episode maybe got enlightened a little bit and will also seek out Donald Hoffman because he seems like a fascinating dude. I do enjoy, Marcus, that you're always trying to further your mind and in turn bringing that knowledge to the rest of us. Nothing? No response? Thank you. All right, listen. Follow me over at.
I was digesting. Sorry.
Follow me over at I Am Ralph Sutton. My other podcast is called the SDR Show. Doing quite well lately. A lot of big guests coming on, and we got some crazy things happening in the near future, which I'll fill you in as we get closer. Don't forget, by the way, if you're listening to this podcast and you want to join us, we are doing the Spartan Run in the end of April. So already, like half the Gas Digital staff wants to do it. I had about a dozen people hit me up on Instagram that want to do it. So I would like us all. What we'll do is we'll find out the exact date, Brian, and we'll put it in the show notes. And if you want to be on board, DM me rather. Just DM me on Instagram or DM Marcus on Instagram and say you want in on that run because that's going to be a fun one when we all do it at Citi Field. I believe it's the end of April off the top of my head. The Good Sugar store is on 3rd Avenue and 69th Street. If you had been there once before, you would have gotten that 50% off discount code. How long is that good for, Marcus? Just this weekend?
I was just between 8 and 11 a.m. this morning. That's
it. Oh, okay. It was one day only. Well, that's good.
Come on, wake up. It's the 90s.
It is the 90s. All right. So we'll see everyone next time on the Good Sugar Podcast.